Can you really create your own reality? I mean, can you actually build a life based purely on a blueprint you hold in your mind? That's the big question we're diving in today, and we're going to do it by looking at the incredible story of a woman named Klivia Cosme, who says she did exactly that.
So let's just dive right into this. This one sentence. This is everything. It's the key to her entire philosophy. This isn't about hoping or wishing or wanting. It's about a deep, unshakable certainty. It's like having an internal compass that just never, ever points in the wrong direction.
So in this explainer, we're going to follow her remarkable journey. We're talking from total financial ruin to a life she literally pulled from her own imagination. And maybe, just maybe, we can find an answer to this question.
So where does a story like this even begin? Well, it starts with a decision that, honestly, sounds completely impossible. This was the moment that put her belief system to its very first and maybe its biggest test.
Okay, let's just take this in for a second. She's 20 years old. Her family, bankrupt. They can't prove any income. And she decides she's moving to Canada with $50. $50. To get her parents to even let her go, she had to make up a story about a scholarship. I mean, for most of us, this would be a recipe for pure panic.
But here's the thing that's just wild. Her mindset. In the face of all this evidence that this was a terrible, risky idea, she felt zero fear. And you have to ask why. Well, you see, she was operating from a totally different place. A place of absolute certainty.
This was her answer whenever anyone questioned her. And it's such a powerful statement, right? She wasn't relying on luck. She wasn't relying on other people to help her out. She believed the outcome was basically guaranteed, simply because she was the one in the driver's seat. The power wasn't out there somewhere. It was all internal.
Okay, so she gets to Canada. And this is where it gets really interesting. Because her very first job, something most people would probably look down on, it actually becomes the ultimate training ground for her entire philosophy.
Before she even left, she made this promise to her dad, who was obviously worried sick, and this says so much. It was never about the specific job she would get. It was about the intention, the excellence she was going to bring to any task, no matter how small it seemed. This mindset really set the stage for everything that came next.
And this right here, this just illustrates the power of perspective perfectly. So she gets a cleaning job at the CBC television building. Now, for most people, that's a menial job, a dead end. But for her, it was an honor. It was the vehicle that was paying for her school, for her apartment, for her food. It wasn't a roadblock, it was the road. And because of that perspective, she found profound joy in it.
Okay, so she's not saying it was easy. She acknowledges there were tough times. But when people ask her about those difficulties, she says she honestly can't remember the details. She claims she literally erased those memories, and for a really specific reason.
And this is the why. This is the key. Those small stones, those daily struggles and frustrations, they just become insignificant when your focus is locked on a much bigger, much more compelling vision. Her destination was so clear in her mind that the bumps in the road they didn't even register.
All right, let's get to what might be the most powerful example of this entire philosophy in action. This is the story of how she manifested her dream home, quite literally from an empty plot of land.
So picture this. She's back from Canada. Another business venture has failed. She's at a low point again. But her process, it didn't change one bit. Every single morning, she'd wake up, look out at this empty hill on her parents' farm, and she would begin her work, the internal work of creation. This right here, this is the absolute heart of her practice. I mean, this is so much more than just a vision board or positive thinking. She was actively embodying the reality of the house. She was living in it with all of her senses, long before a single brick was ever laid. So she actually breaks her whole process down into these 3 really distinct steps. First, she had the crystal clear image, a detailed drawing she'd carried with her since she was a little girl. Second, she generated the feeling. She would literally feel her feet walking on the floors of a house that wasn't there. And third, and this is crucial, she expressed gratitude for it, thanking the universe while looking at an empty hill, as if it were already a done deal.
And what happened? Well, eventually, the physical world just caught up. It had no choice but to align with the internal reality she'd been living in for years. The house that stands on that hill today is an exact replica of the vision she held. The mental blueprint literally became the builder's blueprint.
Okay, so after hearing all that, what's the takeaway? What's the formula we can pull from her story?
Let's try to distill this down into a blueprint for what she calls co-creation.
At the end of the day, what she's really talking about is this idea of co-creation. It's not about being a passive observer or a victim of your circumstances. It's this idea that you are an active partner with the universe, and your internal state, your beliefs, your focus, your emotions, is the primary tool you use to build your external world.
So here it is. This is the blueprint she lays out for us. It all starts with that absolute, unshakable certainty. Then you need the perspective to see every single thing as a necessary stepping stone. It demands the embodiment, living that future feeling right now. It requires a laser focus on the big picture, not the small stones. And finally, a deep sense of gratitude for what you know is already on its way to you.
And really, that leaves all of us with a pretty powerful question to think about. If our beliefs are literally the architect of our lives, the most important question you can ask yourself is this: what reality are you building with your mind right now? What vision are you living into today?